The emergency alarm that woke the humans from their sleep was unlike anything they had heard before. It was a deep, thrumming sound that seemed to come from the very walls of the palace, carrying with it a sense of ancient terror. Captain J and his team rushed to the Imperial Command Center where they found chaos. Alien officials were running back and forth, their voices filled with panic. Display screens showed star maps with entire sectors going dark one by one. Emperor Zalthek stood in the center of it all, his massive frame rigid with fear. When he saw the humans arrive, his burning eyes fixed on them with desperate intensity. "They have returned," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "After 3,000 years of silence, the Void Swarm has come back." Admiral Vexter appeared at the Emperor's side, his scaled face pale with terror. 17 border systems have gone dark in the past 6 hours. No communications, no survivors, nothing. They're consuming everything in their path. Science Officer Yuri stepped forward to study the displays. "What exactly is the Void Swarm?" The Admiral turned to her with surprise. "You do not know? But surely your species has legends, warnings passed down through generations?" "We've never heard of them," communications specialist Hana said. "Remember, we're new to galactic civilization." Emperor Zalthek gestured to the largest display, which showed a recording from one of the lost systems. The image was grainy and distorted, but it clearly showed something impossible. A writhing mass of living ships that seemed to bend space around them. "They come from the void between galaxies," the Emperor explained. "Ships that are alive, hungry, beyond imagination. They devour energy, matter, entire worlds. Nothing can stop them. We can only hope to delay them long enough to evacuate our core systems." Chief Engineer Wu studied the recording with professional interest. "Those aren't ships, they're creatures. Look at the way they move, that's biological, not mechanical." "Of course they are creatures," snapped the court scientist, a spindly being whose name translated roughly to Keeper of Ancient Fears. "They are the hunger given form, the darkness between stars made manifest. They cannot be reasoned with, cannot be defeated, can only be endured." Security Chief Nam watched the tactical displays that showed the Empire's response. Massive fleets were pulling back from the border, abandoning entire sectors to create defensive lines around more important systems. "You're retreating?" he asked. "Retreating." Admiral Vextar looked confused. "We are establishing defensive positions. It is the only way to buy time." "But you're giving them more territory to consume," Nam pointed out. "They're going to get stronger while you get weaker." "There is no other way," the Admiral snapped. "For thousands of years this has been our strategy. Build stronger defenses, retreat to more secure positions, hope they eventually lose interest and return to the void." Captain J studied the star map, watching the pattern of the swarm's advance. "Has that ever worked?" A long silence fell over the command center. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "No," he admitted. "Each time they return, they consume more before departing. Each time we lose more worlds, more people, more of our civilization." "Then maybe it's time to try something different," suggested Medical. Officer Rin, the Keeper of Ancient Fears, made a sound like breaking glass. "Different? There is no different. The swarm is a force of nature, like a star going nova or a black hole forming. You do not fight such things. You simply try to survive them." Yuri looked up from her analysis of the swarm recordings. "Actually, that's not quite right. These aren't random natural phenomena. Look at their movement patterns. They're following shipping lanes and communication routes. They're specifically targeting inhabited systems." "Of course they target inhabited systems," the Emperor said impatiently. "They feed on energy and matter. Inhabited worlds have the most of both." "But that means they're making choices," Yuri continued. "They're not just mindlessly consuming everything, they're selecting targets. That suggests intelligence." "Intelligence?" The Admiral sounded horrified. "That would make them even more dangerous. Or it would make them something we could potentially communicate with," Hana said quietly. The entire command center fell silent. Several alien officials stared at the human communications specialist as if she had suggested something obscene. "Communicate?" the keeper whispered. "With the void swarm? That is madness beyond description." "Why?" Jay asked. "If they're intelligent, then they have reasons for what they do. Maybe those reasons aren't what you think they are." Over the next several days, as the swarm continued its advance and the Empire's fleets continued their retreat, the humans worked to understand their new enemy. They studied every recording, every sensor reading, every piece of data the Empire had, collected over thousands of years. What they found challenged everything the galaxy believed about the Void Swarm. "They're not randomly destructive," Yuri reported to the Emperor and his council. "Look at this pattern analysis. They consistently avoid certain types of systems, young stars, planets with primitive ecosystems, uninhabited worlds with unique geological features." "That proves nothing," the keeper insisted. "Perhaps such places simply do not contain what they seek." Wu shook his head. "But they also show clear signs of technological adaptation. Each time they encounter new defensive strategies, they develop counters within hours. That's not instinct, that's learning." "Most importantly," Hana added, "I've detected what might be communication signals within their formations, complex patterns that repeat and evolve. If these are really communications, then they have language." The Emperor's advisors began arguing loudly in several different alien languages. The idea that the Void Swarm might be intelligent beings rather than mindless destroyers challenged everything their civilization believed. "Even if they are intelligent," Admiral Vextar said desperately, "what difference does it make? They have destroyed hundreds of worlds." "Maybe they had reasons," Captain J suggested. "Maybe they were trying to tell you something, and when you didn't listen, they got frustrated." "What could they possibly want to tell us?" "I don't know," Jay admitted. "But maybe it's time to find out." The humans volunteered to take the Determination on a reconnaissance mission into swarm-controlled space. The alien leadership was horrified by the suggestion. "It is suicide," the Emperor declared. "No ship that has entered swarm territory has ever returned." "That's because they were all warships," Nam pointed out. "They went in expecting a fight. What if we go in expecting a conversation?" "The swarm will destroy you instantly," Admiral Vextar warned. "Maybe," Jay agreed. "But maybe not. We're not a threat to them. We're just explorers trying to understand." The debate raged for hours, but eventually the Emperor gave his reluctant permission. As the Determination prepared to depart, Vextar came aboard to speak with the human captain privately. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "You owe us nothing. You could simply leave our galaxy and return to your own people." Jay looked out at the stars through the bridge viewport. "Because that's not who we are. When we see a problem, we try to solve it. When we encounter something we don't understand, we try to learn about it. It's what humans do. Even if it means your deaths?" "Especially then," Jay said quietly. "The greatest discoveries always come with the greatest risks." As the Determination jumped into hyperspace, heading directly toward the advancing Void Swarm, Admiral Vextar stood in the docking bay and watched the stars blur past the observation windows. "Insane," he muttered to himself. "Absolutely insane." But for the first time in 3,000 years, as he watched the human ship disappear into the unknown, he felt something other than despair when thinking about the Void Swarm. He felt hope. The Determination emerged from hyperspace in what had once been the Kello system, home to 12 billion beings. Now there was only darkness and the writhing forms of the Void Swarm. Captain J stood on his bridge, watching the impossible sight before them. The creatures were beautiful in their own terrifying way. They moved like living starships, their bodies pulsing with strange energies that bent light around them. Some were massive, the size of space stations, while others darted, about like schools of glowing fish. "Captain," Science Officer Yuri said quietly, "I'm reading massive energy discharges from the largest creatures. They're eating the star." She was right. The system's sun was visibly dimmer than it should have been, its light being drawn into the bodies of the largest swarm entities like water into a sponge. "They're starving," Medical Officer Rin said suddenly. "Look at their behavior patterns. This isn't feeding. This is desperate consumption. They're trying to survive. Before anyone could respond, the swarm noticed them. Dozens of the creatures turned toward the human ship, their forms shifting and changing as they approached. But instead of attacking, they stopped just outside weapons range and waited. "They're studying us," communications specialist Hana observed. "Just like we're studying them." Chief Engineer Wu was scanning the creatures with every sensor the ship had. Their biology is incredible. They exist partially in normal space and partially in somewhere else. Another dimension, maybe. They're not fully here. That would explain why they need so much energy, Yuri said, understanding dawning in her voice. They're fighting against our reality just to exist here. Every moment in our dimension costs them enormous amounts of power. Captain J made a decision that would have horrified every military officer in the galaxy. "Hana, open all communication channels. Broadcast on every frequency we have." "Sir, what should I say?" "Try hello." The response was immediate and overwhelming. The swarm entities began pulsing with complex patterns of light and energy. The ship's computers struggled to process the flood of signals. "It's definitely communication," Hana reported excitedly. "Incredibly sophisticated. They're using mathematical concepts I can barely follow. Wait, I think they're trying to slow down for us." Over the next several hours, the humans worked to establish basic communication with the beings they had always known as the Void Swarm. It was exhausting work, requiring every bit of linguistic and mathematical knowledge they possessed. What they learned changed everything. The creatures called themselves the Hungerborn, refugees from a dying dimension where the laws of physics were breaking down. They had been fleeing through space for millions of years, searching for a place where they could exist without constantly consuming energy to maintain their physical forms. "We do not wish to harm," the largest entity finally managed to communicate, in broken but understandable concepts. "We seek only place to be. Your dimension fights us. We must feed or fade." "They're not invaders," Jay said over the communication link back to the Empire. "They're refugees. They've been trying to find a way to survive in our universe for millennia." Emperor Zalthek's voice crackled with static across the vast distance. "Refugees? They have destroyed countless worlds." "Because they were dying," Yuri explained. "Imagine trying to breathe underwater. Eventually, you'd drown, no matter how much you didn't want to hurt the fish." The conversation with the Hungerborn continued for days. Slowly, a picture emerged of a species that had been forced from their home dimension by forces beyond their control. They had not chosen to become wandering destroyers. It was simply the only way they could survive. "Show us your history," the largest entity requested. "We would understand how your people live in harmony with this reality." What followed was the strangest cultural exchange in galactic history. The humans shared their knowledge of physics and dimensional theory, while the Hungerborn revealed technologies that existed beyond the normal laws of space and time. Chief Engineer Wu was the first to see the solution. "We can build stabilizers," he announced during one of their daily briefings. "Devices that would let them exist in our dimension without constantly burning energy. They already have most of the technology. They just need help adapting it." "Is such a thing possible?" asked Admiral Vextar, who had been monitoring their communications from the safety of the Imperial fleet. "More than possible," Yuri confirmed. "The math is complex, but the principle is simple. We create a buffer zone where their dimensional energy can be processed and stabilized. Think of it like pressure suits for deep-sea diving." The work began immediately. Human innovation combined with Hungerborn dimensional technology and the Empire's vast manufacturing capabilities. For the first time in galactic history, 3 completely different species worked together on a common project. But not everyone in the Empire supported the effort. A faction led by Admiral Kelnara, a proud warrior from the militant Thaklan species, saw the cooperation as betrayal. "We do not negotiate with destroyers," she declared during a heated council session. "The Void Swarm must be eliminated, not accommodated." "They're not destroyers by choice," Captain J argued. They're victims of circumstances beyond their control. Pretty words, Kelnara snarled, her forearms gesturing angrily. But words do not bring back the billions they have consumed. The crisis came when Kelnara launched a surprise attack on the research station, where humans, Empire scientists, and Hungerborn were working together to perfect the dimensional stabilizers. Her fleet struck without warning, targeting both the station and a group of Hungerborn who had volunteered to help with the testing. The battle was brief but devastating. Several Empire ships were destroyed when the Hungerborn fought back in self-defense, and the research station was badly damaged. Worse, the attack destroyed weeks of careful diplomatic progress. They attacked us while we worked for peace, the Hungerborn leader communicated, its signals heavy with what could only be described as sadness. Perhaps cooperation is impossible. Perhaps we are doomed to be enemies. No, Jay said firmly. Some individuals chose violence, but that doesn't mean all of your species are the same. Some of us want peace. Security Chief Nam had been thinking about the larger implications of Kelnara's attack. Captain, she's not going to stop here. If she's willing to attack her own people's research station, she'll try to sabotage anything else we accomplish. Then we need to finish the work quickly, Wu said. The stabilizer prototypes are almost ready. If we can prove they work, it'll be much harder for her to argue against the project. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Medical Officer Rin, working with both human knowledge and Hungerborn biology, discovered that the dimensional stress affecting the aliens was similar to certain genetic conditions in humans. It's like a cosmic allergy, she explained. Their bodies are rejecting our dimension the same way some humans reject certain proteins. But if we can create the right kind of buffer. The first successful test of a dimensional stabilizer was conducted on a volunteer Hungerborn entity, no larger than a human fighter craft. When the device activated, the creature's constant energy consumption dropped by over 90%. For the first time in millions of years, one of the Hungerborn was able to exist in normal space without fighting for survival. Peace, the creature communicated, its signals filled with wonder. We feel peace. The news spread quickly throughout both the Empire and the Hungerborn fleet. For many on both sides, it was the first real hope they had felt in centuries. But Admiral Kelnara was not finished. Even as the successful test continued, she was gathering support from other military leaders who feared that cooperation with the Hungerborn would lead to the Empire's destruction. The humans have bewitched our leaders with false hope, she broadcast to her supporters. They would have us embrace the very creatures that have been our doom for millennia. This cannot be allowed to continue. As reports of her growing rebellion reached the research teams, Captain J realized that their greatest challenge was no longer technological. It was political. They had found a way to solve the Hungerborn crisis, but could they convince both sides to accept that solution? We're so close, he said to his crew as they watched another successful stabilizer test. We can actually fix this. But if we can't stop the people who want to keep fighting, then we keep working, Yuri said firmly. We prove that peace is possible no matter what the warmongers want. Outside the research station, the stars shone down on an unprecedented sight. Human ships, Empire vessels, and Hungerborn entities working side by side, building a future that none of them could have imagined alone. Captain J stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, watching the stars through the main window. His ship was humanity's first attempt at faster-than-light travel. After years of work, they were finally ready to test their new jump drive. The plan was simple. Jump to the edge of their solar system, take some readings, and come back home. All systems ready, Captain, said Chief Engineer Wu from his station. The man looked tired, but excited. This was the moment they had all worked toward. Good, Jay replied. Hana, any last messages from Earth? Communications Specialist Hana checked her screen. Just the usual good luck wishes, sir, and a reminder to bring back some alien souvenirs. She smiled at her own joke. Science Officer Yuri looked up from her calculations. Jump coordinates locked. In. We should appear about 10 billion kilometers from the sun. Jay nodded. Woo, start the jump drive. The engineer's hands moved across his controls. The ship began to hum with power. Outside, the stars started to blur and stretch. Then everything went white. When the light faded, Jay expected to see their familiar sun in the distance. Instead, he saw something impossible. A massive alien ship floated in front of them. It was at least 5 times larger than their vessel, with strange curves and spikes covering its dark hull. "What the hell is that?" Wu whispered. Before anyone could answer, more ships appeared around them. Dozens of alien vessels, all different shapes and sizes, but clearly not human. The largest one was so big it blocked out the stars behind it. "Sir," Hana said, her voice shaking slightly, "I'm getting signals from multiple sources. They're trying to communicate." Yuri was already scanning the alien ships. "Captain, these vessels are using technology I've never seen before. Their power readings are incredible." A new voice filled the bridge. It was harsh and spoke in a language none of them understood. Then something clicked, and the words became clear. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the territory of the Dominion of Cathera. State your purpose or be destroyed." Jay looked around at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. He could see fear in some faces, but also curiosity. These were explorers, after all. "Hana, open a channel," he said calmly. "Channel open, sir." Jay straightened his uniform. "This is Captain Jay of the United Earthship Determination. We seem to have made a navigation error. We're peaceful explorers from the planet Earth. We'd like to discuss this situation with your commanding officer." There was a long silence. Then the voice returned, sounding confused. "Did you say Earth? We have no record of this world, and you speak as if you are not afraid. Do you not understand your situation?" Jay looked at Wu, who shrugged. "Honestly, no, we don't understand our situation. That's why we'd like to talk. Are you the commander of this fleet?" Another pause. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Cathari Imperial Navy. You are surrounded by 47 warships, each capable of destroying your primitive vessel in seconds. Yet you speak of discussion?" "Well, yes," Jay replied. "Destroying us wouldn't help anyone learn anything. We're clearly not from around here, and you seem to run some kind of government. Maybe we can work something out." Yuri was quietly scanning the alien ships. She leaned over to Jay and whispered, "Their weapons are impressive, but their design is old-fashioned, like they haven't changed their technology in a very long time." Wu was studying the power signatures. "Their shields are strong but simple, and their engines, they're powerful but not very efficient. I could probably improve them by 30% with some basic modifications." Jay held up a hand for quiet. The alien admiral was speaking again. "You are either very brave or very stupid humans. No species has ever responded to Imperial contact with such casualness. Most beg for mercy or attack in desperation." "Why? Would we do either of those things?" Jay asked. "You haven't threatened us directly, and fighting would be pointless without knowing your capabilities. Besides, this is fascinating. We've just discovered we're not alone in the universe." "That's incredible." There was an even longer pause this time. When the Admiral spoke again, his voice carried a different tone. "Your species is unusual. Very well. You will follow my flagship to Cathera Prime, the capital of our empire. The Emperor will decide what to do with you. Do not attempt to flee, or you will be destroyed." "Understood," Jay said. "We appreciate the escort. Hana, send a message back to Earth. Let them know we've had a slight change in our flight plan." As the alien ships formed up around them, Wu couldn't help but comment, "Sir, don't you think we should be more worried? We're being taken prisoner by aliens." Jay smiled. "Are we prisoners? They asked us to follow them to meet their leader. That sounds more like a diplomatic invitation to me." Yuri was still studying her readings. "Captain, I'm detecting thousands of different energy signatures from their ships. This isn't just one species. It's an entire alliance of different alien races." "Even better," Jay said. "Think of what we can learn." Security Chief Nam finally spoke up from his position near the door. "Sir, shouldn't we be preparing for the possibility of a fight?" Jay looked at him. "Against 47 ships? Nam, you're good, but you're not that good." Nam grinned. "Fair point, sir, though I have to say their formation is pretty sloppy. They're assuming we can't fight back, so they're not being careful." Let's not give them reason to be more careful, Jay warned. We're explorers, not conquerors. As the determination followed the alien fleet through space, Hana managed to intercept some of their communications. Sir, they're talking about us. Most of them seem confused. They keep using words that translate to strange and unprecedented. What did they expect? Wu asked. Yuri had been listening to the chatter as well. From what I can understand, most species either surrender immediately or try to fight when they meet the Empire. No one has ever just talked to them like equals. Jay nodded. Well, we are equals. We're all intelligent beings trying to survive. In the universe, the fact that they have bigger ships doesn't change that. Hours passed as they traveled deeper into alien space. The crew took turns studying the escort ships, learning everything they could about alien technology and behavior. What they found was surprising. These ships are incredibly advanced, Yuri reported, but they're also incredibly old. Some of these designs look like they haven't been updated in centuries. Wu agreed. It's like they perfected their technology long ago and then just stopped improving it. That's not how humans work. Maybe that's why we seem strange to them, Jay suggested. We're always trying to make things better. Maybe they're not. As they approached their destination, a massive space station came into view. It was clearly ancient but well-maintained, with docking bays that could hold ships the size of cities. Welcome to the Empire. Admiral Vextar's voice came over the radio. Prepare to dock. And humans, try not to embarrass yourselves too badly. Jay smiled. We'll do our best, Admiral. Thank you for the escort. As the determination moved toward the docking bay, Jay couldn't help but feel excited. They had come looking for empty space and found a galactic civilization instead. Whatever happened, next it was going to be interesting. The transport ship that carried them to Cathara Prime was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It moved without any visible engines, floating smoothly through space as if pushed by invisible hands. The alien crew members were equally strange. Some looked like giant lizards, others resembled walking plants, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. Captain Jay and his team sat in what their escorts called a comfort chamber, though the seats were clearly not designed for human bodies. Science Officer Yuri spent the entire trip taking notes on everything she could see, while Communications Specialist Hana worked on understanding more of the alien languages she was hearing. Captain, Hana said quietly, I've been listening to their conversations. They keep talking about how we should be trembling with awe by now. Chief Engineer Wu looked around at the transport's interior. It's impressive, sure, but trembling seems a bit much. I mean, humans built ships that could cross oceans before we even had electricity. This is just the same idea, but bigger. When they finally arrived at Cathara Prime, the aliens clearly expected a strong reaction. The planet was covered in floating cities that hung in the air without any visible support. Massive towers stretched up from the surface, connected by bridges, made of what looked like solid light. The whole world glowed with a soft, pleasant light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Admiral Vextar watched the humans carefully as they looked out the window at his homeworld. Behold the crown jewel of the Empire, he said proudly. 50 million years of civilization shaped this world into perfection. It's very pretty, Jay said honestly. How do you keep the floating cities stable in bad weather? The Admiral blinked his large, lizard-like eyes. Stable? They are held aloft by gravitic manipulators perfected eons ago. Yuri nodded approvingly. That's quite efficient. Do you use the same technology for your ships? Of course, Vextar replied, but he sounded confused rather than proud now. Interesting, Wu said. I was wondering about that. Your power systems are very stable, but they seem to use a lot more energy than they need to. Have you considered using rotating gravity fields instead of constant ones? You could probably cut your power consumption by half. The alien admiral stared at the human engineer for a long moment. You have been among us for one day, and you think you can improve technology that has worked perfectly for millions of years? Well, not improve exactly, Wu said carefully. Just make it more efficient. It's what humans do. We're always trying to make things work better. Their escort to the Imperial Palace was equally strange. The humans rode in a vehicle that flew through the air without making any sound, piloted by a being that looked like a cross between a spider and a tree. The streets below were filled with aliens of every shape and size, all going about their daily business in what seemed like perfect order. No crime, no poverty, no conflict, their guide explained proudly. The Empire has achieved perfect harmony. Security Chief Nam looked down at the peaceful streets. How do you handle disagreements? Disagreements? The guide's multiple eyes focused on Nam. Citizens do not disagree with the established order. It has been perfected over millennia. Nam exchanged glances with Jay. But what if someone has a new idea? What if they think something could be done better? Why would they think that? The guide asked, genuinely confused. The system is perfect. The Imperial Palace was massive beyond imagination. It was carved from a single mountain and covered in decorations that seemed to move and change as they watched. Thousands of alien courtiers filled the halls, all dressed in elaborate robes that probably cost more than most human cities. Emperor Zalthek was waiting for them in a throne room the size of a football stadium. He was enormous, even by alien standards, with golden scales and eyes like burning stars. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Approach, humans," he commanded. "Come before the master of 40,000 star systems and beg for mercy." The humans walked forward calmly. When they reached the base of the throne, Jay simply said, "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Your Majesty. We appreciate your hospitality." The Emperor stared down at them for a long moment. "You do not prostrate yourselves. You do not tremble. Are you so stupid that you do not understand your position?" "We understand that you're the leader of a very large government," Jay replied politely. "We'd like to discuss the possibility of establishing diplomatic relations between our peoples." A ripple of shock went through the alien courtiers. Several of them began whispering urgently to each other. The Emperor's burning eyes narrowed. "Diplomatic relations? You are a species of primitives who cannot even travel properly between stars. What could you possibly offer the Empire?" Yuri stepped forward. "Well, we could share our research on dimensional physics. Your faster-than-light travel is impressive, but we've developed some theories that might help you improve it. And our medical knowledge might be useful. We've learned how to treat genetic damage that your species seems to have trouble with." The Emperor's massive head tilted slightly. "You claim to understand our technology after seeing it for mere hours?" "Not understand completely," Yuri admitted, "but we can see some areas where it could be improved. For example, your gravity manipulators work by fighting against natural forces instead of working with them. If you redirected the energy flow, instead of overpowering it, you could achieve the same results with much less power." The court physician, a creature that looked like a walking flower, suddenly spoke up. "Impossible! The gravity systems have been perfected for eons." Wu pulled out a small device from his pocket, a simple human tablet. "May I?" he asked the Emperor. At the Emperor's nod, Wu began sketching diagrams on the screen. "Look, your current system works like this," he said, projecting the image for everyone to see. "You're using force to push against gravity, but if you do it like this instead, you can use gravity to help you, not fight you." The alien scientists in the court crowded forward to see the diagrams. Several of them began talking excitedly in their own languages. This could actually work," one of them whispered. The Emperor raised a massive hand for silence. "Even if your ideas have merit, what do you want in return?" "Nothing, really," Jay said. "We're explorers. We want to learn about the universe and meet new people. If we can help you in return, that's great." "Nothing?" The Emperor sounded suspicious. "No territory? No tribute? No slaves?" Hana looked shocked. "We don't use slaves." That's terrible. Then how do you accomplish great works?" "People work together because they want to," Jay explained. "We pay them for their labor, and they use that payment to buy things they need." The Emperor stared at them for another long moment. Then he began to laugh, a sound like distant thunder. "You are the strangest creatures I have ever encountered. Very well. You will be our guests while we study your unique perspectives." As they were led to their quarters, Admiral HFY walked beside them. "I must ask," he said quietly, "are all humans like you?" "Pretty much," Jay replied. "Why?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment. "In a million years of contact with alien species, none have ever reacted to the Empire as you have. Most are terrified. Some are aggressive. A few try to bargain for their lives, but none have ever treated us as equals." "Well, that's what we are," Jay said simply. "We're all just people trying to make our way in the universe. The fact that you have fancier technology doesn't make you better than us, just different." Vextar stopped walking. "Better than you? Young human, we control 40,000 star systems. We have weapons that can destroy planets. We have lived for millions of years." "That's very impressive," Jay agreed. "But you still put your pants on one leg at a time, don't you?" "Well, assuming you wear pants." The Admiral looked down at his elaborate uniform, then back at the human captain. For the first time since they had met, he seemed uncertain. "You humans," he said slowly, "are going to cause us a great deal of trouble, aren't you?" Jay smiled. "Probably, but it'll be the fun kind of trouble." 3 weeks into their stay on Cathara Prime, the humans were beginning to understand just how different they were from the rest of the galaxy. Medical Officer Rin had been studying the alien physiology with the help of the Imperial doctors, and what she found was both fascinating and troubling. "Captain," she reported during their daily briefing, "these people are incredible, but they're also trapped. Most species in the Empire live for thousands of years, some for tens of thousands, but they've paid a price for that longevity." "What kind of price?" Jay asked. Rin pulled up a holographic display showing alien genetic structures. "They've bred out almost all genetic variation. No diseases, no birth defects, no aging, but also no adaptation. They can't evolve anymore. They're stuck exactly as they are." Science Officer Yuri nodded grimly. "It's the same with their technology. I've been working with their engineers, and they haven't had a truly new idea in over 1,000 years. They just make the same things bigger or smaller." This became obvious when Chief Engineer Wu was invited to tour the Empire's greatest engineering achievement, the Stellar Forge, a massive space station that could build entire planets. The alien engineers were proud to show off their masterpiece, expecting the primitive human to be overwhelmed by its magnificence. Instead, Wu spent the entire tour asking questions that made his guides increasingly uncomfortable. "Why do you mine asteroids for raw materials when you could just convert stellar energy directly into matter?" he asked. "That is impossible," replied Chief Constructor Velram, a crystalline being whose body rang like bells when he spoke. "Matter cannot be created from energy." Wu blinked. "But it can. E=mc². Any energy can become matter if you apply it correctly. Haven't you tried that?" The alien engineer's crystal body flickered with confused colors. "Energy is energy. Matter is matter. They are different things." "Actually, they're the same thing in different forms," Wu explained patiently. He pulled out his tablet and began sketching. "Look, if you take your current stellar collection array and modify it like this, you could convert pure starlight into any element you need." Within an hour, Wu had redesigned systems that had remained unchanged for millennia. Alien engineers watched in growing alarm as he casually solved problems they had considered unsolvable. "This is not possible," Velram insisted, even as his own calculations confirmed Wu's work. "If these improvements were feasible, we would have discovered them long ago." "Maybe you just needed fresh eyes," Wu suggested. "Sometimes when you've been doing something the same way for a long time, it's hard to see new possibilities." The cultural differences became even more apparent when the humans were invited to witness the Arena of Champions, the Empire's greatest gladiatorial spectacle. Every year, the finest warriors from across the galaxy gathered to compete for the title of Supreme Champion. It was considered the highest honor in the Empire. The current champion was Crixtal, a massive insectoid warrior who had held the title for over 2 centuries. He was 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor and had never lost a fight. When he entered the arena, the crowd of 1,000,000 aliens roared with approval. "Behold the perfect warrior," Emperor Zalthek announced from his viewing box. Swift as lightning, strong as a mountain, and utterly without fear. Security Chief Nam watched the champion's demonstration with professional interest. Krikstal was indeed impressive. He moved with incredible speed and struck with devastating force. But Nam noticed something else. "He's too predictable," Nam said quietly to his companions. "What do you mean?" asked communications specialist Hana. "Watch his patterns. He always strikes high first, then low, then circles to the left. He's been doing the same combinations for centuries. Against opponents who fight the same way, it works perfectly. But against someone who fights differently..." The Emperor overheard Nam's comments. "You think you could do better, little human?" Nam looked up at the massive alien ruler. "I don't know about better, Your Majesty, but I fight differently than your champion does." "Differently how?" "Well, he's trying to look impressive. I just try to win." A ripple of shocked whispers went through the royal box. No one had ever suggested that the arena was about anything other than impressive displays of martial skill. The Emperor's eyes glowed with interest. "Would you care to demonstrate this different approach?" Nam looked at Captain J, who nodded slightly. "Sure, why not?" An hour later, Security Chief Nam stood in the center of the arena, wearing simple human combat gear and facing the towering insectoid champion. The alien warrior was clearly amused by his tiny opponent. "This will be quick," Krikstal announced, in his clicking voice. "I shall try not to damage you too severely, little creature." "Thanks," Nam replied. "That's very considerate." The fight began exactly as Nam had predicted. Krikstal struck high with his right claw, then swept low with his left, then circled to the left for his favorite combination attack. But when he reached the spot where Nam should have been, the human wasn't there. Nam had simply stepped to the right and tripped the champion as he passed. Krikstal crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs, his armor clattering against the arena floor. The crowd fell silent in shock. In 200 years of competition, no one had ever seen their champion fall down. The insectoid warrior scrambled back to his feet, his compound eyes blazing with anger. "Lucky," he chittered. "That was mere luck." He charged again, this time leading with his devastating headbutt attack. Nam waited until the last second, then dropped to one knee and punched upward into the champion's throat. Krikstal's charge turned into a stumbling stagger as he gasped for air. "How?" he wheezed. "My armor. Nothing can penetrate." "I didn't penetrate it," Nam explained calmly. "I hit you where the armor doesn't cover. Basic targeting." The fight continued for several more minutes, but the outcome was never in doubt. Every time Krikstal tried one of his perfect time-tested techniques, Nam simply did something unexpected. When the champion finally surrendered, the arena was completely silent. Emperor Zalthek stared down at the scene below. "Explain to me what just happened." Nam shrugged. "Your champion is very good at fighting other champions, but he's never fought someone who wasn't trying to be impressive. I just used basic tactics. Misdirection, targeting weak points, using his size against him." "Basic tactics?" "Sure. Any human soldier learns this stuff in training. The goal isn't to look good, it's to survive." As they left the arena, Admiral Vextar walked beside the humans with a troubled expression. "In one afternoon you have defeated our greatest warrior using techniques so simple that our children could learn them." "How is this possible?" Yuri answered, thoughtfully. "I think it's because you've all become too perfect. Your champion has never lost, so he never learned how to adapt. Your engineers never fail, so they never learn to try new approaches. Your society never changes, so no one learns to handle change." "But surely perfection is desirable?" the Admiral asked. "Perfection is a dead end," Captain J said gently. "When you become perfect, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you become vulnerable to anything that's still changing." Vextar was quiet for a long moment. "You humans are not perfect, are you?" "Not even close," Jay admitted. "We make mistakes all the time. But that's how we learn." And you are still growing? Always, Wu said cheerfully. That's what makes life interesting. The Admiral stopped walking. Around them, the perfect streets of the perfect city stretched away in perfect order. Nothing had changed here in thousands of years, and nothing ever would. I am beginning to understand, he said slowly, why your species disturbs us so greatly. You represent something we have forgotten how to be. What's that? Hana asked. The Admiral's scaled face showed an expression that might have been sadness. Alive, he said, quietly. You represent being truly alive. That night, as the humans gathered in their quarters to discuss the day's events, they began to realize the full scope of what they had stumbled into. The dominion of Cathara was vast and powerful, but it was also stagnant and brittle. They had achieved perfection at the cost of vitality. They're going to need our help, Rin said quietly, not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we're still capable of change. The question is, Jay mused, are they ready to accept that help? Outside their window, the eternal lights of the perfect city glowed unchanging in the alien night, just as they had for countless centuries before.